Almighty God, touch my lips of clay, that these words may not be my own vain words, but we all may find inspiration in your Holy Scripture. Amen. Well, first of all, I want to say a couple of things. I want to say thank you for allowing me to attend my father's 80th birthday, and Auntie Shirley's 80th birthday. It was a wonderful experience. I met members of my family I had never met before, and found that the family was just extraordinary. You know, sometimes you are wholly disappointed when you meet a group of people you haven't met before. Rarely. Usually people are better than you fear. But I went there and they were wonderful. A diverse and open-minded and interesting group with a fair smattering of eccentricity. I'm not entirely sure where the eccentricity comes from. It's obviously a new departure in the family and the younger generation. Because none of us have ever evinced the slightest hint of eccentricity. So thank you for that. I'm also going to preach for a very short time because we had the animal blessing. And I noticed when I said that, Jim nodded his head emphatically, as if to say, yes, you are, Pastor. So I've written it down, so I don't have any choice. Now, what I would like to say is there's a reason why I chose the King James Bible for the first reading, and the Psalm. It's because King James, you may be surprised to hear, is one of the most faithful translations when it comes down to those bits of scripture which are uncertain or troubling. Now, many modern translations, the translator says, oh, I know what that means, or, oh, I don't want to confuse people, or they will paraphrase it into a context into which they think it should go. And there are some parts of scripture which are just a bit mysterious. And the King James, in its favour, leaves them a bit mysterious. Although in this case, it's been as naughty as everyone else. Now you'll get to see what I'm talking about when I come towards the end of the sermon. So I probably should have left all that bit until the end of the sermon when it would be relevant. But I didn't. We live in a culture and in a world, and we have done for generation after generation, which have a mindset of us and them. Now, us and them doesn't just stop with us as me, human beings, my group. It goes way beyond that. This is our besetting sin as a people. This is our tragedy. This is our fallen state. Criminals are them. Sick people are them. Muslims are them. Most certainly drug addicts, the mentally ill, and the unknown are them. Every time us and them, however, is examined closely by us, whenever we are honest and we decide that it is necessary for us to look a little deeper in our us and them, we discover that greater knowledge breaks down the us and them. Ever and again, the more we find out, the less we are fearful and the less we hate. Now, the LGBT community has found this to be very much the case over the last 20 years. The more they came out, the more we became known, the less people were able to demonize us as a community. And the more people realized that they were people they liked and loved and cherished, their neighbors, their family, and their friends. There are, however, a few gay folk that I can think of who make me positively homophobic, but I probably should have kept that to myself. But whenever you examine the us and them, it begins to break down. Now, the unfolding of the faith stories, and there's lots of them written down in the Bible, are effectively a story of the continual progress away from us and them towards a unified humanity and a unified creation. The ultimate us and them was a small tribe surrounded by benighted heathens, surrounded by the godless Gentiles. A small tribe wandering in the wilderness where everyone outside was considered to be forsaken by God. That was the ultimate us and them. And Scripture led away from that. It eventually led to a man on a cross dying once and for all. It led to there being no Jew, no Greek, no man, no woman. Now, those of us who are weary of all the changes and chances in this troublesome world may find delight and comfort in Jesus who died that all may see clearly that us and them would fade and be vanquished in human hearts in the knowledge of God's transcending love for all creation. That the human urge to categorize and judge as good or bad is fatally flawed. That we may look on the cross and see victory and defeat, and find the need to conquer, to subjugate, and oppress is defeated by that same cross. The ultimate us and them is the gulf that we have put in place between us as humans and the rest of creation. We are the tippy top, the apex, the acme, as we have the most complex brain, and all the rest is therefore ours to exploit, as if weakness automatically gives license to oppress, exploit, destroy, and to treat with cruelty, when our faith teaches us exactly the opposite. But the application of this faith to animals has only been a relatively modern thing, with just one or two examples to the contrary. Only in the late 19th century, Pope Pius X said that the screams of animals in the abattoir should be looked at no differently than the groaning of wood on the carpenter's desk. The Vatican suppressed any humane societies in Italy until well into the later half of the 20th century. We now look upon what the Pope said in the 19th century and see it as evil. It is a sign of our progress that we are now beginning to see our fellow creatures as being ensouled, as being creatures of God, as being made with intent by the same God that formed us. In the great story, the great allegory, the great symbol of the Garden of Eden, humanity once lived in a state of unity and peace with all creation. Indeed, this is held up for all of us as the ideal state of humanity, one of coexistence and peace, not domination and exploitation. In our first reading, there is a startling detail deliberately erased from most Bibles. I say this deliberately because it's something that would change our whole perception of our place with our fellow creatures, and yet it has been mistranslated ever since the Bible, the Hebrew scriptures, were first translated out of Hebrew. And it is still there as a mistranslation in almost every translation of the Bible. The Hebrew word, ruach, means soul. It is translated as a living soul, in Adam's case in Genesis, but is translated as living creatures in the case of the animals. I can tell you now, it does not say living creatures. It is the same Hebrew word, ruach, that means soul. It is the definitive statement when the Hebrew scriptures were put together that all living creatures were invested with the same ensoulment as humanity. That the breath of God fell upon each and every one of them, including indeed the trees and the rocks, as it fell upon human beings. No longer is that apex of creation, and by weakness everything else that can be exploited, eaten, destroyed, factory farmed, pumped full of chemicals, and driven to its slaughter. All of a sudden we see ourselves as being in unity with the creation around us, and that is a joyful and a wonderful thing. Amen. We do not live in a severed and broken creation. We do not live in a broken universe. We live in a universe which is united in the love of God. And we live in the universe, if we choose to, that is united in a mutual love with all creatures. I've had to persuade myself over the last few weeks that that even extends to ticks. I have. I've been thinking deeply about it, and that's my great challenge. That understanding is very easy to come by when you see a puppy or your own dog or you see a kitten, but it's very hard to come by when you see a tapeworm or a tick. But we have to understand that they are the ensouled, beloved creations of God in the same way as the other animals are. I'm afraid pleasantness and prettiness are not the same categories that God uses in creation. Alas. However, I still kill them when I find them on market. I tell you this not as a lecture, but as a fragment of testimony, my experience, if you like, a very personal experience, and a fragment of factual insight. The bit about the Hebrew word is factual insight. The rest of it is my testimony. It's what I've learned, but it's not necessarily something that can be replicated. But it may suggest possibilities to your journey. It's the testimony and the insight given by others that will open the windows of my soul in places, and that even now is doing so. I, as a Christian, and as a pastor, but primarily as a Christian, I need you. I need each and every one of you. I need you in congregational worship. I need your presence. I need your character, and I need your stories. Otherwise, my faith becomes drier and poorer and less able to grow, in the same way as your faith would become drier and poorer and stunted if you were cut off from the communal life with all its richness and frustration and joy. We need each other, and that is good, because we are bound together in God, whether we accept it, know it, or perceive it. In fact, it is a fact. Human, dog, bison, sequoia, even the very rocks beneath our feet and the oxygen in the air, we are creation, and it shall not be subdivided. Amen.